Shubhodayam. Welcome you all for this Maitrimilan session. And every day we chant this Indian calendar, Panchangam. I thought today, let me take this opportunity to give some insight or details into this particular Panchangam. And that is, there are several calendars that have come in various parts of the world. But then today what we adapt is a calendar which is universal. And that's what we say, 2019 is the year. And then August is the month. And then date. All these things are there. But what is the importance of the Indian calendar which we chant? I would like to give you some details about that. This whole calendar that started, and that also is connected with the Mahabharata war and Bhagavad Gita. So therefore, when we are doing this Gita chanting, we also remember that calendar. It will be very useful for us. In fact, after the Gita ended, that was the time then Kali Yuga started. It is always recognized that the whole time span is divided into 4 different parts. The first portion is what is called as Satya Yuga, Krita Yuga. Second portion is Treta Yuga. And third is Dwapara Yuga. And the fourth one is Kali Yuga. And this Kali Yuga started from Bhagavad Gita. That means to say a totally new, different kind of a rule has been brought about, or the laws have been brought about for preservation of this country, dharma of this particular place. In fact, before I go to explain about that, let me give a very small idea that Krishna, when he completed his education in Sandipani Ashram, at that point of time, by that time he knew that his mission in life is to see that he established dharma. And then all the other masters who were there, not only Sandipani, but the others who were visiting Sandipani Ashram, coming across Krishna, they thought that he is the person who will really bring about this particular change. That's why he is known as Yuga Avatara. And then, so it's the responsibility on you to see that you bring about this particular change. In order to bring about that particular change, he said, I need to have somebody who is a family or a kingdom, a king who is capable of bringing this particular thing. Dharma is at the root of such a person. Then the idea of taking the help of Pandavas came. And that is when Krishna has come across Pandavas. That I will tell you later. But from that time onwards, the Krishna's mission was to see that slowly the dharma is prevailed, adharma, it is unrighteousness, is eliminated. This was the idea that was there. So he eliminated adharma, that means to say the unrighteousness in various individual ways, but at the same time, in Mahabharata war, finally that was the war between good and bad. The bad is eliminated, good is established. This seemed to be the mission of Krishna. That's one of the reasons why Mahabharata war, though there were several wars that have taken place, this war is something which people never can forget about it, because its importance is to establish a dharma which runs for several thousands of years. And this war has taken place 5,000 years ago, and we still remember. Not only that, the message that is given in the form of dharma, and that's what is Bhagavad Gita, we remember that. In fact, of the chanting that we do, unfortunately, it's in Sanskrit. The people who do not follow Sanskrit or Hindi script may not be able to understand, but let me say a very simple thing so that it can make it clear. The first one is Vimshatyadika, that means today, Vimshati is 20. And then Ekashatottara, 100. And then followed by Panchasahasratama, 5,000. That means basically it is 5,120 years from the time of Mahabharata war. So our Bhagavad Gita chant, presentation. So it is like the way 2019, what we say, In our Indian calendar, it is 5,120 years by now. And then afterwards they follow various other things. And each year is given a name, Vikaryanam Samvatsara, the name of this particular year. So we remember that. And of course, our year different, it starts from Yugadi, and then that is why it is called as Adi Yuga, and then that particular Yuga, it is the beginning of it. So it continues like that. Now, one thing is that there are two different calendar systems that are evolved all over the world. There may be several calendars, but the systems are only two. And one system is the solar calendar, that means based on sun, and the other is the lunar calendar based on the moon. And this calendar which Krishna talks about, or what we talk about in the name of Panchanga, it is based on the lunar calendar. It is not solar calendar. People who have visited Griffith's Observatory or Greenwich Observatory and all that, you can find how the Western calendar has emerged, that they have a pendulum and which will be rotating, and over a period of 1 year that rotates for full complete sun. It is actually movement upon the sun. That is why this particular calendar has been decided. Whereas Indian calendar is a lunar calendar. Now what happened to the solar calendar? It is all uniplanar. That means in one plane that you see the calendar moving. Now, when I was in my school, and I was reading about various things, particularly I had a good interest in mathematics. So in the mathematics when we read the octagon, pentagon, and then decimal and all that. Deci means 10. We know very clearly. Octa is 8, and then Nava is 9. Then suddenly it occurred in my crazy mind, that is, why do you call the December as the 12th month? It should have been 10th month. And then second thing is, November should be 9, but it is 11th month. Particularly octagon is something we know that it is 8-sized shape, whereas October is supposed to be 10th month. So there must be somewhere something went wrong. So then I started exploring about that. Several years have taken. Then I found out originally the Western calendar was only 10 months. Only 10 months it was there. But then what happened? Days, morning and sunsets, both these things do not change. So therefore a day is completely fixed. And then this particular day, and when they have divided into 10 months in a year, naturally what happens is that that was not sufficient. The season would vary. That means it go forward. Therefore what they did was that this calendar was not matching. So Julius Caesar, he added 1 month in that calendar. That's how we got July as interjected in between. Later on what happened was that even that was not sufficient. Augustine added 1 more month called as August. Otherwise, everything could be thought of in 10. In fact, the 10 number so easily one can get into, because 10 is the fingers that are there. Every count has been is being done on the fingers. In fact, if you go to the caves, Egyptian caves and all that, you can find that the counting was in the form of fingers, that they used to count their cattle in the form of fingers. What they used to do is that in the cave they used to put 4 lines straight. That means to say 4 fingers indicating, and thumb is always crossed. So therefore they used to cross that. And that is supposed to be 5. If you go back to the ancient text, that you can find out that. So that is how it emerged that there's Roman counting 1, 2, 3, 4, and the moment 5 came, it became V. V is actually the main 4 and then cross line. So this is how they used to count. So therefore 10 months, understandable. But then when it was not matching, they added 1 more month in the form of July, and then later on 1 more month in the form of August. Afterwards what happened? It was not still matching. The time was changing, and therefore that they had to make some amendments in the whole thing. I heard that in 1220 is supposed to be a leap year. They have removed that leap year because that time was not matching. Then they added 31, 30 days and all those things. So therefore, that the calendar has been very approximate, not very clear. Particularly when they went space mission, they sent the space mission to the space, and then when it came back, the calculation of time based on this particular idea, it was so erroneous that when the spaceship has come back to India, or come back to Earth, what they thought it did not match with that. Then they had to make some amendments. So today, it's a constantly changing because basically that we have atomic clock, based on that we do it. In fact, I remember during my early days, I heard that sometimes that they have removed 1 minute from the day so that the time can manage. Why all these things happen? Because everything in the Western, in the modern calendar, it is turned into linear. The circle is given into the linear. Therefore, we use the formula called pi. And you know, pi is indeterminate number. 22 by 7, it can go on changing. So therefore, as the time passed larger and larger, the error being added. So therefore, everything was getting error added. So that is the reason why this calendar had an effect. Whereas Indian calendar is a moon calendar, lunar calendar. Similarly, Egyptian calendar is a lunar calendar, Inca's calendar is a lunar calendar. But then what is the difference between the Indian calendar and the others? They base only on moon. That's why you see that Muslims, that their whole reckon is about whether they have sighted the moon or not. In fact, whether you sight the moon or not, but the mullah in Delhi has to sight the moon saying that yes, Roza is over, Ramadan is started. Something like that they would say. It is based on only one reference, whereas the Indian calendar is not one reference, it has got several references, and that is, it is not just only the moon's track that we follow, but when we say lunar calendar, it is the night sky. When you take a picture of the night sky, of course today we have cameras to take the picture, but those days we didn't have cameras to take the picture. So what they used to do is they had to take a huge large plate of oil, and in that oil the black surface at the bottom, this sky is reflected, night sky is reflected, and they would take those points and project it on the paper, all these things. And as the time passes, they would see that how various dots move. And when the dots move, you can clearly understand that the night sky, all the stars move together, all the planets move together, all the other celestial body together, then the constellation move together. So therefore, based on the stars, constellation and various planets, they have come up with an idea of what is called as this calendar. That's why it is a three-dimensional calendar. It is supposed to be, one dimension is about the constellation, and second one is the star, and then third is the planet. And the constellation is about our year, and the star is supposed to be our month, and the planet is supposed to be our days. So like that, various combinations of these things are there. Because of that reason only, it's a dynamic calendar. Because it is a dynamic calendar, like the way that with sunrise and sunset, day will not start and end. Our day will start somewhere in between. If you look at Indian calendar, whatever the tithi that we are talking about today, tithi means is the day. The day today, it starts at 10 o'clock in the morning. Whereas tomorrow's day will start at 12 o'clock in the morning. The other day, it might start at 5 o'clock in the morning. So that means to say, it is not a fixed calendar, it itself is adjusting, self-adjusting dynamic calendar. Because of that reason only, that this calendar is something, for several thousands of years we did not require to amend this calendar. Even though Kali Yuga started with Mahabharata war, but this calendar existed even before that. In Ramayana also there is a reference about this particular calendar. And not only that, it is about the way that it has been organized, beautiful way, but to see that the whole calculations is very extraordinary. It's very complicated, complex calc. So that's why people write this Panchangam, that means to say our calendar, and then they seriously sit down and think about it and plan all that. And it takes for them so much that whatever that 10,000 years, 5,000 years ago they thought about the solar eclipse or the lunar eclipse, are exactly the same day it follows. And whatever today that our Indian calendar says that today in this year, in this month, the lunar eclipse comes at this particular time and that particular time it leaves, it cannot change. It is always the same. There is no requirement for amendment because basically it's a dynamic calendar. That's why I say that this calendar is something which is extraordinary. Not only that, this calendar also has various components in that, because after all, human being is somebody who is subjected to all these stars and planets and their influences on us. Especially moon has such a strong influence on us, on our psychology. In fact, that's the reason why people say that on the full moon night, generally people who have mental aberration will have problem. Whereas new moon night, they don't have a problem, because that day the moon's reflection, moon's influence is there on the human being. In fact, probably that's the reason why all over the world they recognize, they call it as lunatics. The people who are psychologically not all right are called as lunatics, because lunar means moon. So it is moon connected, therefore it is given like that. So all these things show that how much influence that is there on that. In the work that we do, in the health that we have, and in the activities that we do, relationship that we have, in all those things, the influence of these particular planets and stars are there. So that is why we have 5 different, divided into 5 different kind of aspects in the calendar. That's why it is called as Panchanga. Pancha means 5. And 5 different influences that are there. And one influence is Tithi, that means day. Tithesha Sriyamapnotu. You find out a suitable Tithi so that it will be useful. And Vara Ayushyavardhanam. What is for your health is supposed to be Vara. And then Nakshatra Dharate Papam. The star that is there is responsible for the way that your mind goes into good or bad direction. And then same way, Yoga Roga Nivaranam. In fact, for the sake of removing the diseases within us, this yoga of various planets or stars in a particular way, that can give us. Similarly, Karana Karya Siddhischa. Karana is dependent upon 8 different constellations and planets together, and therefore, whatever the activity that we take up, it is dependent on all this arrangement that is there. Earlier, people used to look at all those things, say, all right, you are going to start some activity, then choose these particular dates or these particular areas so that you can do it. There is success in that. So like that, it influences all your life. So this particular calendar is supposed to be guiding us throughout our life. It's not just a day starts and the day ends and all other things are arbitrary. There is nothing which is arbitrary. Everything is so planned and so properly organized, because influence of all those things are taken care of. We avoid what are supposed to be the calamities. Now, there are people even now, because basically it is reflection on the plate rays, night sky. So different places have different kind of reflection. Therefore, basically, in this culture we have 6 or 7 different kind of calendars that are evolved. One calendar is Mysore, and the other is Pune, and third is Benares, and fourth is supposed to be in this thing. What is that? Konark. So like, and the 5th one is Himalaya. So like that, various places they used to calculate these things and give us these ideas. And as I said, that there are 3 different levels of calculations, the 3-dimensional calculation. People used to do it, even now people are there ready to do it. But those days, very specially talented people, they used to do it on the fingers itself. The top of the finger is supposed to be the day, the middle of the finger is supposed to be month, and then the lowest of the finger is supposed to be the year. And then 60-year cycle used to be there. Therefore, if you look at it, how scientific it is, once in 60 years, all the planets and stars which were there 60 years back, against the same structure will be there after 60 years. Therefore, we have what is called as Shashti Purti, that means a 60-year celebration, And 60th year, that means you are once again reborn. So on the 60th celebration, basically they do all kinds of rituals which you go through their daily life. So all that they go through. There are some people who calculate on the fingers. And I don't know whether today somebody is there or not, but those days used to be there. Now this is an interesting fact that is there. When Krishna wanted to meet Pandavas, but then they were underground. How to bring them out? How to make them public? The only thing that they thought, Sandipani and others that they have advised Krishna, is that only Arjuna knows to do these calculations on the fingers. So therefore, we try to create an occasion where he comes out. And that occasion is Draupadi Swayamvara. And Draupadi has to be married, and then she has to choose a suitable boy. And that boy must be somebody who breaks the Matsya, that means to say, a fish, this thing. And that fish is not an arbitrary thing, it's a moving fish. It is moving around itself and going around something, and that the whole thing goes around there. When you look at the structure of that fish, it is nothing but the structure of the time. This planet Earth, and the moon going around that, and the moon, Earth turning around itself, going around the sun, and the moon going around the Earth. So like this, the same structure is given. It's not arbitrary, it is calculation based. And only person who knows the calculation is Arjuna. So therefore, basically, Krishna plans this Draupadi Swayamvara. He goes to Drupada and says that we should have this. Then Drupada says that I don't think there is anybody who can really break that. Only person we knew was Arjuna. And Arjuna is dead, he is no more. It's all right, somebody will come. So he makes him to see that that particular Swayamvara is organized. And then that is organized because when Pandavas come outside, he needs a support. Therefore, he goes to his brother and then says, Balarama, why don't you come down with me? Draupadi Swayamvara is there. Balarama says, you are already married, what is the point in going to that Swayamvara? I said, no, not for your sake, but your student is there. Duryodhana is going there, so you should, Duryodhana needs your support. Oh, okay, right. Then he will say, okay, I will come. For the sake of Duryodhana, Balarama comes there. And Krishna is sitting next to Balarama, and suddenly Duryodhana walks in. And Balarama was very happy. He said, wow, so Balarama has come. Krishna said, no, I'm waiting for somebody else. You brought me here for Balarama, and you are waiting for somebody? Yeah, who are you waiting for? I'll let you know. Be patient. This man becomes restless. You always cheat me. And then Krishna says, wait. After a while, I said, yes, I will tell you why we have come here. I said, what? We have come here to welcome Pandavas. That means and the Kunti Putras. What? They are dead? They are not dead, they are alive. And they are here. Where? Wait, don't be in a hurry. Because by the time Krishna saw somebody sitting there who is calculating those things on the finger, Krishna recognizes that. He said, yes, I found out Arjuna, I found out others, so they will be there. But now I need your support. What is that? When they come out, we should be able to support them because Balarama is a big king, so therefore his support will be accepted. Therefore we should, if Kunti's children are come, then I will definitely support. Then the whole kings, princes, they are all over. Now there is nobody who could break that, including Duryodhana. Then Drupada was very sad. They said, because this particular thing did not go through, we go to the next level. Then Krishna immediately says, no, there is one particular exemption for the rule. What is that? If the Kshatriyas do not do that, then we should give the chance to Brahmanas. Then immediately people said, no, how can Brahmanas do that? It's Kshatriya, Swayamvara and all that. But why are you worried about it? If Kshatriya did not do it, which Brahmana will do it? Okay, let us give it. So that is how basically it was accepted. And then, when the Brahmana's turn came, then Arjuna gets up and walks in. Krishna says immediately to Balarama, he is Arjuna. We have to bring him out into the life. We have to support him. Arjuna comes there and then he stands there. In 2 minutes that he understands what is the mechanism of everything and then takes out his bow and exactly hits the eye of the fish. And everybody was very happy because Arjuna could break it. No, we don't want to accept it like the way that Kshatriya said. Immediately Arjuna where Krishna pokes Balrama, say, come on, get up, and tell them that he is not a Brahmana, he is Arjuna. And therefore he is also a Kshatriya, he will definitely be able to take care of it. So this is how the whole use of this calculations of calendar has been utilized for bringing Draupadi's Swayamvara, bringing back the whole Pandavas out. And from that day onwards, Krishna has given so much of guidance and tutoring to Pandavas. And later on, at the end of all these things, Mahabharata war, during that time, he re-establishes Pandavas because Pandavas were supposed to be the people who could take care of this particular dharma. That's why Krishna said in Bhagavad Gita, wherever there is dharma declines, yada yada dharmasya glanir bhavati, at that time, see that a situation comes, a good forces come to see that re-establishment of dharma takes place. This is what you can see in the whole history itself, how many times that dharma appears to be going down, but again it is revived. So this idea of Indian calendar is so much connected with our scriptures, with our knowledge. So we should really appreciate that. Thank you. Let's go to the Shanti Mantra.